Stories never heard before. The Weaver of Memories. In a forgotten village, nestled between two hills, that never made it onto any map, lived a woman named Vidya. Her house stood at the edge of the forest, where the wind carried stories, none dared to speak. Vidya hadn't spoken a word in 27 years, not because she couldn't, but because silence had become her sanctuary. She was 18, when the landslide came. It swallowed her home, her parents, and her younger brother. She survived, by clinging to a tree root, her body bruised, her voice buried beneath grief. The villagers found her days later, staring at the rubble, her lips sealed like a vow. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply stopped speaking. They called her the ghost seamstress. She stitched clothes for villagers, always leaving them folded on doorsteps, before dawn. None saw her enter or leave. Children whispered that she could hear thoughts. Elders said she was cursed. But none ever asked her why she chose silence. What they didn't know was that Vidya had a secret ritual. Each night, she gathered scraps. Some of them were loose cloth, faded shirts, old shawls. And she wove tapestries, not of beauty, but of memory. She embroidered scenes she had never witnessed, but somehow knew. A mother's silent prayer, a child's dream of flight, a widow's wanting a better life. Her fingers stitched what hearts refused to say. She hung these tapestries in the village's old community hall, a place where meetings were held, disputes settled, and festivals prepared. Over time, the villagers began to see the tapestries as divine gifts. None knew who made them. They simply appeared, like blessings. Some villagers began leaving offerings, flowers, grains, even letters beneath the tapestries. They believed the weaver could hear their pain, and transform it into thread. And in a way, she did. Vidya stitched not just fabric, but feeling. Her tapestries became mirrors, quiet reflections of lives, too tender to name aloud. One monsoon evening, a traveler arrived. His name was Arun. He carried a broken harmonium, and a satchel of books. He had left the city, after losing his wife, seeking silence, not as punishment, but as medicine. He had tried music, meditation, even forgetting. But nothing softened the ache. So he wandered, hoping that somewhere, silence might speak back. He noticed the tapestries immediately. One showed a boy, releasing a bird from his palm. Another, a woman standing in rain, her face stitched with golden tears. Arun was moved, not just by the artistry, but by the emotional precision. These weren't decorations. They were confessions. He asked the village elder, who made them. The elder shrugged. They appear. That's all we know. Arun began leaving notes, at the community hall, not addressed to anyone. Just stories. He wrote of his wife's laughter, his guilt for not being able to protect her, his fear of forgetting her voice. He didn't expect replies. He just needed to speak, into the silence. Days turned into weeks. He kept writing. And Vidya kept reading. She began stitching differently. Her threads grew bolder, her patterns more layered. One morning, the villagers found a new tapestry, hanging in the hall. It showed a harmonium, cracked open, with golden threads, spilling out like music. Beneath it, a stitched silhouette of a woman, her mouth open, her eyes closed, her hands raised, not in grief, but in song. Arun wept. He knew it was for him. That evening, he sat in the village square. And played his broken harmonium. The sound was imperfect, but it trembled with truth. As the notes floated into the dusk, Vidya stepped out of the shadows. She walked slowly, her hands trembling. The villagers fell silent. She stood beside Arun, and spoke her first words in nearly 3 decades. Silence is not absence. It is where courage learns to breathe. The square held its breath. And then, like rain after drought, the village exhaled. The village changed after that. Vidya began teaching others how to weave, not just fabric, but feeling. She showed them how to stitch their own stories. A farmer embroidered his lost harvest, a mother stitched her child's illness, a girl wove her dream of becoming a teacher. The community hall became a sanctuary of stitched memory. Children brought scraps from their homes. Elders shared forgotten garments. Each tapestry became a shared ritual, an act of remembering, of reclaiming, and of healing. Some villagers stitched stories they had never even told their families. A man who had once run away from home embroidered the night he returned. A woman who had lost her child stitched a cradle surrounded by stars. A boy who had never spoken stitched a river flowing uphill. Others stitched dreams they hadn't dared to speak aloud. A young couple embroidered a house they hoped to build. A grandmother stitched the face of her sister, lost in childhood. A girl stitched a classroom filled with books, each one glowing with light. Arun stayed. He repaired his harmonium and played every evening. Vidya never spoke much, but when she did, her words felt like lanterns, rare, soft, and life-giving. She told Arun once, "Grief is not a wound. It's a doorway." And slowly, the village began to understand that recovery wasn't about returning to what was lost. It was about becoming something new. Vidya never sought recognition. She never claimed the tapestries as her own. But her presence became a kind of compass, quiet, steady, and deeply felt. She taught the villagers how to listen, not just to each other, but to the spaces between words. She taught them that silence could be sacred, that memory could be stitched, and that healing didn't always arrive with answers. It sometimes arrived with thread. Years passed. The tapestries multiplied. The community hall became a gallery of emotion, a woven archive of resilience. Visitors came from faraway towns, drawn not by fame, but by something they couldn't name, a feeling, a hush, and a connection. And when they asked, who made them, someone would always point to the edge of the forest and say, "She lives there. The woman who taught us that memory is not what we keep. It's what we choose to weave."